Welcome to all on this occasion of the book launch of Sonya by author V. Ramsamuj Gosine. Good afternoon. You know, I have known the author for years and fondly referred to him as Vishnu Ji. But it was only recently when Poetry and Prose was putting together its anthology and he had a story in it that I found out through him that the name he loves to put on his work is V. Ramsamuj Gosine. I hadn't realized it. So I went back and checked some of the things I have of his writings, and the man was correct. I didn't ask him why. It is so good for friends and family and relatives and like-minded individuals to gather under such a circumstance as this, a book launch, as opposed to the so many other activities people find themselves attending and gravitating towards. We gather this afternoon here in the hospitality suite of the NCIC compound under a circumstance too where we are in the mood for celebration. For a book launch celebrates not only the birth of a book, and we have millions and millions, but also the effort and creativity of the author, in this case, V. Ramsamuj Gosine, who has written this book. There is, of course, the added invitation to those of you who so far without a copy of Sonya to avail yourselves of a copy or copies and to have it or them autographed before you leave. So I am indeed grateful for the privilege afforded me to be your master of ceremonies. The lineup promises to be an exciting and enthralling experience. That said, those are my brief opening remarks. So welcome again. While in cricket to start the game, the umpire says, "Let's play," I simply say, "On with the program." Natasha Greer has a degree from UE in theater arts. She's an educator and theater practitioner. Natasha is a stalwart of the Monday evening virtual storytime program of the Faizabad Regional Community Complex. She always delights us too on Poetry and Prose fortnightly Zoom meetings with a dramatic rendition of whatever extract or excerpt she has been presented with. Her most recent theatrical performance involved playing the role of the narrator in Parson Productions' play Janki Devi. I understand it's a surprise. I asked Vishnu what Natasha was going to read, and he says he himself is looking forward to what she has to offer. So I call on our first presenter this afternoon, Natasha Greer.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Gosine, for writing a really enthralling book. So I've decided to read today Chapter 2, Ratan. Dad's was the third child in the family, 1 year younger than Chris and 4 years younger than Dolly, who was now a teenager and Ratan's favorite. Like 1 or 2 members of his family, he was short and skinny, but different in one respect. He got away with many pranks when he should have been punished. At age 12, he was still happily running around carefree and without any sort of responsibility to do any particular chore. He played both boys and girls games and enjoyed them immensely. In fact, he played most girls' games better than the girls. He gave the appearance that he didn't care one bit whether he went to school or played truant all day in the cane fields with Cyril, Roy, Boone, and Maru. He wasn't too aware that boys and girls were born basically different in 1,000 ways. And he certainly didn't know about life and death. Like others, he believed a child came from a mother's belly, which was cut open, and then the infant taken out. That was enough knowledge for him. Dads thought all these things because his father once said, young people are real stupid. They have to grow up to have sense. And dads believed him without question. Then too, Auntie Mama once told Sonya, in reference to Chris, that he could not construct a simple box cart. Nobody does learn anything in the belly and come. Me find Chris always making excuse, always. He too damn lazy, and Sonya not telling him anything. This comment, which Chris heard, confirmed his relationship with his aunt. He was never rude to her, never disobeyed her, but he avoided her at all costs. Auntie Mama, Sonia's only sister, lived a short distance away on a hill. For that reason, she visited Sonya regularly. She seemed a very unhappy woman. No one could pinpoint why, but she was always in conflict with Sonia's children. She was strict, and Dads politely distanced himself from her. But Auntie Mama and Dolly got along well. When Ratan died, Dads was 12 years old, the same age as his friends Boone and Maru. Except for Dolly and Chris, no one had really developed a relationship with Ratan because at the young age of 40, he slipped away from his family and became history. It was a very sad day. No one expected. Ratan was everything to his family. Dads could not forget his father. There were some incidents he remembered in a great detail, which guided him along. Of course, Dolly told all her siblings stories about their father, and these stuck in their memory, but with time, they lost interest. Other stories replaced them. Occasionally, she repeated the narratives, and they recalled them immediately. In this way, they kept Ratan alive in their minds. One day, in anger, Dolly said to Chris and Dads, "Maybe all you don't have any brains. That is why all you're always forgetting. Gosh, man." "Yeah, just like you," Dad said. "Only reading rude story in the magazine, you and Pagli." "Yes, you well fast, listening to big people business. Just like you and Pagli, only talking about boys," he said, a grin on his face, and ran away. He feared Dolly would have slapped him, as indeed she would have if she had caught him. There was only one picture of Ratan that survived the time of their struggle for food, stability, education, and a happy future. That picture hung on the wooden wall in the hall. It was his passport-sized photograph that he had taken out for his motorcycle permit. In that photograph, he was constantly looking at anyone who passed by. You felt his eyes follow you wherever you went. The younger ones especially, and there were 4 of them, came to associate him as the man with the broad felt hat. They never remembered his slightly balding head, for it was seldom seen. Beneath that hat was well sheltered a pair of small, dark, almond-shaped eyes. Ratan had a thick mustache which hid his upper lip, and this mustache he trimmed daily, clip, 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 with a pair of short scissors he kept in one of these singer's sewing machine drawers. The mirror which he used had been bought at Ragmir and Company at Mount Lambert. The company was having a cheap sale, and Ratan got 2 for the price of 1. Ratan was a progressive man who might have achieved more if he had continued his education beyond Standard 7. His formal education came to an end in that class. He could not attend high school because there were very few in the island, and only the rich and bright and those who knew the principals were admitted. And sometimes those schools insisted that you belonged to a particular religion. That was another problem Ratan faced. If there were available schools, especially government schools in the area, he would have attended one. Dolly said Chris and Dads were bright. The syllabus demanded a great deal from them, and they studied hard to master the work. In those days, there were excellent teachers like Dave Bihari, a man both feared and loved by many students. Some students thought that he was too enthusiastic. If you, a member of Sonya's family, were absent, he visited the home unexpectedly, telling Sonya that the children must attend school, that home was no place for learning to read and write. So please, send them to school, were his parting words. Just send them. Yes, headmaster, Sonya said. Yes, headmaster. And she did as he asked. In his youth, say about the age of 15, Ratan was still attending school in the 7th standard. He could go no further. At this time, once you attained the age of 16, you had to leave school and find work because the school could take you no further. If you didn't leave, you were put out unceremoniously by the authorities. From Sonya, the children learned a lot about their father's younger days. He had told her of his life with his parents. In those days, Sonya said that he chatted a lot, unlike the recent years where he was tired and preoccupied with work and the trade union. For Ratan was to obtain any kind of meaningful employment without skills, he would have to accept a laborer's job in the sugar company. Otherwise, he could become a fisherman, a crab catcher, a bottle buyer, a shopkeeper's assistant, or drift along selling fruits or vegetables near the roadside. He could have even become a pundit like his father, Pundit Dilraj. In the family tradition, he was buried in salt in the coconut, sitting cross-legged with dried coconuts crashing on his grassy grave. These same dried coconuts were reaped and sold to the new bakery in Kalapaya, and from there, the villagers obtained fresh hops bread every evening except Sundays. Again, it was from their mother the children learned this story. Their paternal grandfather rejected all those various means by which Ratan could earn a living. He himself had come from a distant country and settled into this new land and worked the sugarcane fields. Later, free to do as he pleased, he cultivated a number of crops around his house, and he had done well. He was even offered 5 acres of land in Ferozbad as an inducement to stay in Trinidad. He had married and raised a family, built a house, and saved some money. He wanted his son, his only child, to settle into a steady job, and this was what he got for Ratan. On his way to work, if he were caught in the rain, Ratan was sure to be drenched, for there was no place to shelter except the tall, dark bushes in the cemetery. Brecon Castle was indeed the largest sugarcane factory on the island and was owned by the British firm of Tate and Lyle. Ratan was fortunately apprenticed in the machine shop department for a few years. There he learned to use complicated tools and make very useful parts. He was designated a machinist, a respected name for those who worked in the sugar company. It was unavoidable wear and tear in the factory, and new parts were always in demand. Tools and parts were imported from England, and this meant that they must be ordered from there at all times. From experience, the officials knew that the parts took weeks to arrive. It was tragic. The managers thought that certain departments could shut down for a while when there was a malfunction of an essential part. Further to this, the managers estimated that the company would lose lots of money because nothing could be repaired locally. so you never have the parts when you wanted them. This was where the machine shop and Rattan's training fitted in. The company officials were indeed very happy to have earlier trained him, and especially to have him deliver the parts within hours. Sometimes he worked overnight to get things done. Because of this, Rattan felt an air of importance, and indeed, Mr. Tom also looked upon him as a very valuable worker. Rattan liked his job and was competent at it. As his apprenticeship period ended, the company hired him as a full-time worker. He happily accepted it. This permanent job meant a fixed, regular income at the end of every fortnight. His father had liked that. Rattan had risen one step further up the ladder of achievement, and his father was pleased. Rattan was generally a quiet man who went about his daily activities without much communication until he exploded. People recognized this and never forced him to have conversation. He was friendly enough, saying hello and hi to all, but on many occasions that was the limit to his interaction. At this point in his life, he had begun to wear a hat, not so much because of the rain or the sun, but because he was balding, and he felt he should not declare this to the world. Sonya shared this information with her mother. Rattan say he too young to have bald head, so he does hide it. Hide it, eh? Some people does never want to get old, Bakanaya said, and laughed. Hope he not playing young boy, because once he get married, young boy days done. You have a wife now. Not my Rattan. He just likes to hide his bald head. One day, Rattan was standing in front of their chulha while Sonya struggled to ignite the immortal firewood. She was blowing through the pukni, a short piece of cylindrical iron pipe, to get a flame. He saw the challenging efforts she was making. He too blew at the fire but failed to ignite it. He wondered what he could do to make cooking easier for her. He couldn't afford to buy a stove. He calculated not even a kerosene one from Kazim's store. Ideas were forming in his head, and without telling anyone of his ambition, he paid closer attention when he visited many of the managers' houses where he serviced their stoves. Often he made new parts to replace the faulty ones, doing so effortlessly. This was how the idea of making a stove for Sonya came to him. And although he was doubtful, the fear of failure in his mind, he decided to take up the challenge. Later, he said to himself, I might fail, but I might succeed too. And this might help make things easier for Sonya with all the cooking that she has to do. I think I'm going to try. And you know what? If I make cooking easier, she will have more time to do other things and not hustle whole day. He became obsessed with the idea. You know what, he said to himself? I go surprise she. It gonna be my secret. One day he brought home what looked like a square iron box with two large round holes at the top and the longer sides opened. He explained nothing to anyone, and no one asked anything. Over the next few weeks, he took home an iron tank, a piece of hose, a new bicycle pump, 2 small cylinders with bolts in them, and some other parts. On evenings, he spent invaluable time alone doing one thing or another related to the stove. Sometimes he was soldering, sometimes cutting, sometimes pounding, sometimes simply staring at the parts he had put together. A few times he covered everything with a brown bag and never even peeped at the parts for days. Sonya asked him one day, if you're finished looking at them old iron you bring home, don't leave them there. Throw them in the river. Somebody might bounce up their foot on it. One hard stare, and she sensed that she was an intruder. He answered, I was just thinking what next to do. I just thinking, and thinking does take time. It's not like making a roti. And who tell you roti easy to make? You could make one? It was not a conversation he wished to pursue, so he didn't answer. After many weeks of working on the project, he said, Sonya, come see some magic. You're bound to feel surprised. What you going to do? Is a surprise. Just come. Sonya was unsure of what he meant. Perhaps she was going to see a homemade magic show, something like what Maggie the magician showed the children at school. He looked anxious. She was curious, but a little scared. Their children joined them, and they too were anxious, curious, and skeptical. Magic? Chris said. Pa, you could do magic? Dolly said. Dads looked from a safe distance away. Not me and Datna. I stayed far. They all seemed a little less fearful of what was taking place. Sonya read their faces. Just stay quiet, she said, holding her 6-month baby in her hand. And look at what your father doing. He's a big man, and I'm sure he know what he doing. Rattan was indifferent to these comments and shook his head sideways, adding with a grin his complete rejection of her words. He sensed Sonya wasn't too sure of what he was doing, and he knew and was fixed in his work, though wrinkles appeared on his forehead. It was supposed to be a secret, so how could she know? He asked himself. In spite of that and other thoughts in his mind, there was that focused air about him, a man intent on succeeding. Rattan opened the tank, poured gasoline into it, and then sealed the tank with a rubber cap. Sonya, the matches. It's time to light it. Let me show you something I myself make. You're going to really like it. There was a broad, triumphant smile on his face. He had created something, and now he was going to demonstrate it. Softly, he said to himself, I am no engineer, but I was trying to make something good. Now everybody will see it. Hope I get through, though. I really want to get through. It was a strange stove, unlike the white ones that were sold at Kazim's store mostly at Christmas time. Those were tall stoves that came directly from England and the United States of America. A few people had already destroyed their chulhas and happily replaced them with these modern kerosene cookers. Rattan was trying to switch to a stove without paying so much money, which he didn't have. And then he too didn't want to borrow from that thieving moneylender from Windsor Town, that Jubana. Rattan was anxious as he clutched the matches in his hand, trembling. He willed this to work. It must light. A Cassie White wouldn't light. Everything done like what I see in the other stove on them. And I follow the pattern. It bound to light. It bound to light. It must light. Sonya couldn't follow what he was doing. He really make a stove? I never hear more. I can't believe this. A stove that come from England and America? You're joking, Rattan. Big joke. She looked behind her several times uneasily while making sure that there was a place to run if conditions came to that. And then with the baby in her hands, she would run slowly, so she needed all the space she could get. He make a stove? You think this could work? You think so, man? You know anything about this kind of thing? It's a sugar factory you working in, you know. Stove come from away, you forget that or what? She had to raise her voice because a loudspeaker was announcing the date and time of a political meeting to be held later in the week in front of Auntie Mama's shop. As soon as the speaker was finished, the sounds of tassas and steel pans filled the air, and the sounds died only when the vehicles transporting the equipment had gone further up in the village. All their children stood by innocently. Like their mother with her baby in hand, the older ones were ready to run as fast as they could. Everyone was anxious to see magic, and magic they all saw. It was not the kind they expected, but they did see Rattan's version of magic, as Sonya said. Mosiah and Timothy, two neighbors, stood watchful, both cracking their fingers near the Dudus mango tree. A slight breeze swept Mosiah's hair to the front of her face, but she made no attempt to push it back. Timothy took 2 steps forward, observed what was going on, and returned to his original spot. Rattan was the lone person smiling and confident. He knew his efforts were going to pay off, and after this minute, he would be a well-respected machinist. He pumped the air into the tank and observed the curious ones when he was finished. He saw their uneasiness but said nothing. Slowly, he scratched another grain of match from the 3 plumes box but forgot to turn on the switch. He stood still, he fumbled, and then the flame went out. In another attempt, he again scratched a match while the fuel was flowing. The wind blew and the flame went out. He opened the box of matches and scratched another grain. Immediately, what would have been a little flame suddenly exploded into a bright, energetic one. By this time, everybody was smelling the kerosene while the fuel itself was flowing on the ground, spreading all around the stove from a line leading from the tank. 1 or 2 channels crept away and quickly disappeared in the ground, and then boom! The sudden sound, like a deafening roll of thunder, caught everyone by surprise. Sonya screamed and ran. The baby, unaware of what was going on, felt the sudden jerks of his mother's movements. All the children shot out in various directions, screaming their lungs out. 2 little ones stumbled, fell. Dolly dragged them away. Thakur shouted, "Look, fire!" A thin, long yellow flame shot into the air, leaving a trail of black smoke behind it, and slowly disappeared above the mango trees. Timothy and Messiah sent their startling voices, "Oh God," to the quick-moving clouds. Then they hid behind the large grey trunk of the Boodoosingh mango tree and looked on anxiously, perhaps anticipating something else from their safe positions. Messiah brushed back her hair to capture a better view. Timothy said, "It's like a bomb, man. Mr. Rattan, you make a bomb? I never see anything like that before. The noise harder than a train whistle. It nearly make me pee my pants, but I hold it back." Messiah said held on to her dress, "Dolly, father, you get me real frightened, you know. I get so frightened I couldn't move. My foot just get glued down." Rattan stood his ground. Perhaps he was too shocked to move, too surprised at the unexpected outcome to say anything. Or perhaps he was used to explosions at the factory. Only his weather-beaten canvas hat blew away, exposing his balding head and small, flat, hairy ears. Sonya, the Boodoosingh mango tree, her shield, said, "Man, you go kill we. This thing look like real trouble, yes? It look like a Hitler bomb." "It's just a mistake," Rattan said calmly. He seized a wrench and tightened a knot in the line. Quickly, he took a rag and wiped the extra kerosene that leaked down to the tank. "Have to leave it to dry a little, could be a little dangerous. But the stove go light. I promise you, it's not an England stove that come in a box like a dead in it. It's a Trinidad stove I make." "But man, you don't think I know you know what you're doing?" Sonya said, "I don't want this place to catch a fire, you know, because there's one house we have in Esperanza, not 2. Dolly, now inching forward from her safety zone, said, "Pa, I thought you would have get roasted by the way how the fire shoot up to the sky." She saw no reaction and continued, "Like a volcano, like I read about in the poem." He recognized Dolly had failed to support him. "I know what I doing. You think I don't know what I doing, eh?" He looked at her angrily, and this surprised her. "I make carbide light for them fellas and them to catch manikou and iguanas. You remember that? And they working good." "I remember," Sonya said. "And nobody ain't get burned?" Rattan said. "I remember that, Pa," Dolly said. "And they like it?" Dolly had inched closer to her father and was now standing at his side. "And it didn't go voom voom. You remember that?" "I remember. I remember that, Pa. They like it, and you do it for them for free." There was a smile on Dolly's face. "And man, if it didn't go voom voom, all them fellas and them would have been flying in the sky like the Russia Sputnik." Sonya paused. And how the dog name go again? Oh, Laika. Think about them manacles flying in the air and the hunters flying behind them. There was a smile of instant dismissal on Sonia's face. Her reaction made Ratan angry. You have no damn sense, just like Karen. But it could blow up and burn we. But it didn't happen. It just didn't happen. He paused and looked at the stove and then said to himself, I have to figure out this thing. I must. Something went wrong. Something have to be wrong, but what? He turned to those close around him. Anybody could tell me what went wrong, since all you laughing, except the leak. An hour later, his children stood a short distance away from the stove. Sonya stood even further away, biting her fingernails, her eyes glued to the stove. Baby son now safe in the hammock under the house. As Ratan was about to scratch a grain of match, Dolly said, "Boom!" and ran away from the group shouting, "Boom, boom!" Within seconds, she returned to stand next to him. "I ain't afraid, Pa. I ain't afraid. It's only a joke I was making." Ratan smiled and lit two of the burners, his face serious, a fear that he might fail again, his eyes searching the ground. The burner lit. A tiny yellow flame sputtered and died. Need some more air. That will do the trick. I bet that is it. Clearly, he was more nervous and wanted the stove to light. "Chris, come give me a hand here." "Not me. I afraid it go boom and I go get burned." Coward. Never want to try anything new. People just cowards. Will cook in a chula for the rest of their life. Mark my words, for the rest of their life. You could say what you want to know, but I like my chulha. And Chris, right? He doesn't want to get burned up. He's still a child. You think we should still go back to the river and bathe and wash clothes there? You think we shouldn't change? Eh? He was clearly referring to the days when he, Chris, and Dads visited the banks of the Esperanza River, cut down huge immortal trees, dismembered the trunks and branches into manageable pieces, brought them home in the box cart, split them to even smaller pieces, and then put them out to dry. When they were dry, Sonya used them in the chulha to cook. To me, the stove is the thing to cook on. In England and America, that is what they're doing. They're not using wood again. Only people in cave using wood still. Clearly, his anger and frustration were rising to the top. Days passed, and one day he lit the stove without an audience, and even made coffee on it. Satisfied, he said, "Sonya, you could use it now. It wouldn't go vroom vroom again. Only your mouth will go vroom vroom. Only when you home I will cook on that. I'm not trusting that thing. Next thing I go get killed and my children go become motherless. And then my mother will kill you for killing she pretty daughter." And Sonya laughed. He stared into her eyes and said to himself, "Foolish woman." One day, Sonya summoned enough courage to use the stove when Ratan was at home. "Just come and stand up while I try out this thing. Go ahead, come in now." It worked well on that and every day afterwards. From those early tried and tested days, Sonya never cooked on the chulha again. And never again did the stove go vroom vroom. Ratan was delighted at work. Many of his fellow workers knew of his efforts and were encouraging him to make others. His close friends sensed that he was attempting another one, but said nothing to anyone. It was a secret all kept. Auntie Mama did have a reservation about the stove. "Your husband gone mad or what? He making a stove, and when he lighted it, shoot off all the mango leaf and nearly kill a blue jean on the tree. Thank God it's the leaf and not all that gets shoot off. My brother-in-law real mad, yes?" No. It's not so it happened. Then Sonya explained the trials and errors and the success. "Still, only white people could make stove. I don't care what you say." Over the weeks, Auntie Mama began to like the stove, and this encouraged Ratan to ask Tom the engineer for more scrap iron to build another stove. He wanted to give it to Auntie Mama as a Christmas gift. The engineer thought for a few days and said, "No, no, no, that's scrap iron. It's not to give away." "Well, sell me the scrap iron then. I will pay for it." "No, not for sale either." "But it wasting away on the ground and you go throw it away one day." "I'm finished speaking, now get back to work." 2 days later, after discussing Rattan's request with the other engineers, Tom returned to him. "You're a good and honest man, Rattan. So from today I'm promoting you." "Oh?" There was a smile on Rattan's face. "Where to, sir?" "You will work with the tipper now. It's a responsible job. It's a responsible job. You look for fallen canes, and when you see any, write it in your book, and then later report it to the foreman in charge." But, Tom sprinted away soon after speaking with Rattan. Rattan stood confused and dumbfounded, clearly not knowing how to deal with the situation. Promoted was all he managed to say. Promoted? He said to Balaam, his friend, "Is that Persadi that carry news? I figure he tell the engineer I making a stove and plan to make more, and plenty more, and to think I show him how to use the lathe and to make parts and thing." Rattan was disappointed. Now his dream of a gift for Auntie Mama might not come to fruition. Cut off from his supply of scrap iron, Rattan didn't know if he could really build another stove again. For now it looked like no more adventures in stove making. You just can't trust some people. Lucky I didn't get fired for thieving pieces of scrap iron. Thank God I did get a pass. I damn lucky. The good thing is that nobody knew I was going to do what I was going to do with the scrap iron, or else that Persadi fella would have get me fired one time. That news carrying man he is, son of a bitch. "Yes," Balaam said, "that damn son of a good bitch, always willing to shine somebody's shoes." Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Natasha, for chapter 2 of the book, Sonya. Boom. How this stove go? Boom. If it's one thing you'll remember from that chapter. Boom. At this point, I want to acknowledge the presence of Senator Deoroop Teemal, who is also the president of the NCIC. I would like to call on him to bring greetings. Senator Deoroop Teemal is a civil and structural engineer and project manager with over 37 years' experience. His expertise is in project management, contract administration, construction implementation, and water and wastewater engineering. His clients have included the Ministry of Works, NIPDEC, WASA, and Gaspar Grande Water Supply. He's the principal of the Team Engineering Systems Limited. As I said, current president of the NCIC. He has developed the Heritage Center as a major driving force behind the dissemination of Indian culture. He was made a senator, an independent senator in 2018, and serves still in our parliament in that capacity. I see a lot of construction taking place. I would like to call on Senator Deoroop Teemal, President of the NCIC, National Council of Indian Culture, to now bring greetings.
Members of the head table, our author, Vishnu, Gosine, of course, Dr. Bhoendradatt Tewarie, our 50th speaker, our Master of Ceremonies, Krishna, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, namaskar and a very pleasant evening to everyone. And first of all, well, of course, the introduction would have put me in a engineering light, a construction light. And Krishna mentioned about the construction that is taking place here. But, you know, I must be honest about it. We are always way behind schedule in construction in NCIC, despite all the resident expertise. You know, we we tend to challenge ourselves, thinking that we could pull off a lot of achieve a lot of unrealistic deadlines. So in case you were wondering, Diwali Nagar is just about 3 weeks away, but we'll get there. I would like to express appreciation to Vishnu, the author of the book Sonya, for including the NCIC as part of the, having this book launch here at the NCIC, because we appreciate that inclusion and the fact that you would choose this venue to launch a book when there are several other venues available. So we are actually honored, Vishnu, by your decision to have this launch here today. And it is in keeping with the trust of the NCIC over the past, relative future, at least since the Heritage Center was formalized in 2015, that the literary arts, as part of Indian culture, would be explored by the NCIC. Before, yes, we did do some things, but with the Heritage Center, it has afforded us the opportunity to make it a distinct aspect of our work here and the promotion of the literary arts, and in particular the works of our Indo-Caribbean authors, writers, those who do poetry, those who compile books, everything that is pertaining to the literary arts. We are looking to develop it as the years go by. And for Heritage Month, which we have branded, we have a Heritage Festival. We have branded the month of May as Indian Heritage Month. We have been having expositions regarding literary arts. We have had several book exhibitions where we have offered to the public, we have put on exhibition many of the publications by Indo-Caribbean authors. And actually this year, what we did, we actually had, we featured poetry. So we did have a small poetry competition. We had books on poetry. We actually had the privilege of honoring Krishna Samaroo as a poet, a recognized poet in Trinidad and Tobago, in conferring on him an award for his outstanding work thus far. And what I would like to say here at this book launch is that we are motivated by this. I think the more publications we can get, the more we can encourage our local persons to write. Because although we are a small country and our numbers might be limited, our experience on the world stage is huge. And it is huge not only because of the talent of our people, we are exceedingly talented people, but also our history contributes so much to our experience. And the ability to grow and develop and build a nation within the diversity that we have in Trinidad and Tobago, I think brings a unique experience to us here in Trinidad and Tobago that some authors are not exposed to in other countries. But our diversity, the diversity of culture, the diversity of religion, places us in a particular environment that I think as Trinidadans and Tobagoans, or Trinbagonians as we say, we don't always appreciate. And the fact that we negotiate space with each other, we try to respect and understand each other. We have of course, we are sidetracked with certain issues. We are burdened with the challenges of ethnicity. There are many challenges. But I think out of all of it, as a human being, for me, when I speak personally, it has helped me being able to grow in a diverse environment, able to interact with people from different backgrounds and different ethnicities. For me personally, I think it has helped me mature and grow a lot as a human being. And I think here in Trinidad, we don't value that. They actually have tremendous value. Because in some other countries, you grow up a bit unilaterally. And your view and your worldview and your view of other things that challenges persons all over the world is normally a bit constrained. But we are blessed here in Trinidad, I think, to have the opportunity to grow up in such an environment. And I think if we harness that, if we can harness it not as a disadvantage, but if we can harness the commonalities within our diversity, not only focus on the differences, I think as a nation, we have a little ways to go. Of course, there's always room for growth. But if we can harness that and we can build on that, we can do so much as Trinidad and Tobago. So I think when, like our authors, we are always happy that you all can. It's a gift. It's really a gift. The ability to express yourself in words and in a way that captures not just how your brain is clicking, but it captures the connection between your brain and your heart and your soul based on the experiences that you have had. And it's a process of immersion and being able to express it. So it's something that we shall have to cherish. We should cherish our authors because not everybody, although they would wish to capture all of these things in writing, not everybody has that gift. So here, the NCIC moving forward with our Heritage Center, we really want to take this thing, many, many steps ahead. And I am throwing out an open invitation. We can only build on these things. We can only develop our literary arts, make sure it gets its meaningful place in our education system. Because I really think that the humanities are not given the type of focus and attention it deserves. And the humanities are really critical and vital in producing balanced citizens. Otherwise we are a bit lopsided with certain things. Humanities really is a key aspect, which is why I think when UTT was being set up, I think Professor Ken Julian, who we would know as a household name, although he's a technologist and an industrialist and man with a lot of vision, he saw the importance of the humanities, and there's a performing arts faculty at UTT, because although UTT is all about the technology and STEM, the importance of the humanities is there. So hopefully this work by Vishnu would contribute, to the literature that is there, because we won't be hearing, well, we don't have enough literature. The literature is there, and hopefully we can appreciate it as a nation, and we can work very, very hard and lobby very strongly for those who, develop the curriculums and all those things for education to make sure works like these get onto the curriculum. And that is at state level, but at private level and NGOs, of course, we have our role to play. So I would like to tell everybody here, NCIC, we are committed to this development of the literary arts as part of our culture. And we are open to suggestions. We know we have to network with those in the field. We can't conceptualize and just do it on our own, because we might miss the mark by a lot. But we have to network with those who are actually the stakeholders, and the authors, the writers, the publishers, and to see how we could play our part, how we could fulfill our responsibility as a national organization to the development of the literary arts. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator Teemal, for bringing greetings. And now we come back to the book. We had chapter 2 by Natasha, and I'm going to introduce Leslie Ann Beckles. Now, they are like two peas in a pod, Natasha and Leslie Ann. Wherever you find the one, you're sure to see the other, you're sure to find the other. Leslie Ann goes by the ever-attractive handle on social media, and you could see why, Dougla Essence. She's also a stalwart of the Monday evening virtual storytime program of the Faizabad Regional Community Complex. She too makes regular appearances at Poetry and Prose Zoom meetings. In fact, in the anthology I referred to earlier on, put out by Poetry and Prose, Leslie Ann has a poem entitled Kaleidoscope. Now, Leslie Ann has always been curious to learn about her heritage and culture. I Googled that, I stole that from Google. After viewing and enjoying Parasan Productions' Raja Chauhan in Queen's Hall, she landed the role of Surpanaka in Janki Devi. Just as Natasha's, well, I thought it was an extract, but it's the whole chapter she gave us that, no problem. So we got the idea of the father as an engineer, which was played down, you know. So just as Natasha's extract was a surprise, Leslie Ann will surprise us with what she is about to read. I now call on Leslie Ann.
Good evening, all. Happy to be here. Happy to be reading this extract, Chapter 7, Charity. Bhoendradatt was extraordinary in many ways. He lived on the main road, about 5 houses away from Sonya. He walked like a duck, but unlike ducks, Bindu was always looking at the ground. He walks unsteadily with his hands swinging at his sides. Bindu was a peaceful man, and people whispered heartwarming words about him. In his earlier days, he worked at the sugar factory. His in-laws did not have the best reputation, and as a result, he was lumped together with them. He was often introduced in this way. You know Mr. Bubble? Well, he is Bubble's son-in-law. Bubble was considered an evil man, evil person. He was the village's most feared dealer in witchcraft. Rumor had it that he crippled many people with his evil curses, but no one testified to it with proof. There was a time when Bindu reared black pigs at the back of his house. He was nicknamed the Hog Man or Pig Man, especially by the young ones, because he went to many houses early on mornings collecting discarded overnight food, which he poured into dented oil tins. He hung the tins over his shoulders and on evenings threw the food for the animals in the sty. They grunted and fought for it. Many years later, he ceased rearing these flat-nosed animals, but the nickname stuck to him. It's all right, he told Patty's wife. They could call me what they want. It didn't borrow no hole in me. I is still the same man. Hog or pig or dog or cat, still Bindu. And he shook his head from side to side, a wry smile on his face. Oh boy. When he walked the road, he was easily recognized by his appearance. He always wore a white armless merino short, blue duck pants, a weather-beaten hat, and a pair of black knee-high rubber boots. People speculated that he even slept in them. Bindu lived with his wife Pat and Pretty and Cindy, his 2 beautiful daughters, in a house built from a sugar loan. In the good old days, the sugar company made available loans to its workers to build houses, and many sugar workers gave up the barracks of the indentured ancestors for new homes. Bindu no longer worked regularly, but his wife chose to cut cane for 3 days a week in the 6-month crop season, and this gave her enough money to contribute to the family's weekly expenditure. Pat never complained about the field work except to say, some of these drivers too fresh. They make you feel as though all women just do is look for husband. Some of these men are real sick, yes? To that complaint, Bindu said, don't take them on. All man is not the same. She twisted her face in total disagreement. You must defend them, but some of them really no good. A few years before, Bindu had fallen off a horse that he was training and fractured his right leg. Contrary to expectation, the accident did not require him to use a walker or a cane for support. He managed to be mobile, but could not stand erect or walk for long distances. Putting pressure on the leg would add to his pains, the doctor said, and eventually prolong the recovery time. Additionally, he was unable to do any hard work and applied to get some compensation from the sugar company, but it was refused and there was no one to represent him. He was now a cleaner at Munger's gas station at Calpia. There he swept the compound and did general tidying up on mornings. By 9 o'clock or so, he was discharged for the day and he went directly to his home and family. Then Bindu lost his job. A masked bandit with a knife held up the gas station. Bindu wanted to save the attendant, who was slammed against a wall with a 6-inch knife at his throat. He grabbed the hose and sprayed the attacker with gasoline. Bindu withdrew a box of matches from his pocket and screamed at the man, adding, "I will light your little tail up." The attacker sped like a swift dog and escaped in the bushes near the train lines. The manager, concerned for the safety of all, told Bindu, "But you're a madman, yes? You would kill the man, and you might damn well start a fire here and burn down this place. What kind of crazy man you is, man?" "I would have torch and teach all bandits a lesson," was all Bindu said, and walked away. It was the last day he worked there. From Sonya's backyard, she saw and heard everything that took place in Bindu's yard. Seldom anyone heard him, but frequently heard his wife, whose voice seemed to soar above the guava and banana trees. Sometimes it even chased the birds away and caused dogs to bark. It seemed to Sonya that Pat had enough spare time to talk and shout and beat her daughters and chase the fowls and cats from her yard. She chased especially the fowls, which littered the yard with their droppings. Once she skidded on the droppings, but by some strange miracle landed in her hammock, not on the ground. Until this day, no one could say how it happened, but it remained a topic of conversation. Did her father, with his witchcraft powers, intervene? No one knew. When Ratan was alive, he said, she mouthed like Cantor Mike. At another time, he said, it was like running water by the floodgate behind Chintaloo House. Sonya concluded that Ratan didn't exactly like her. Bindu was one of those tireless workers in the village. His wife, when she was not working, ate all day. Bindu worked especially on weekends and did many things to people and charged them no money. He was a permanent village helper. Occasionally, a villager gave him vegetables or a few eggs to compensate for his efforts. He willingly accepted them and said thank you and went his way. Another day, Ratan had said, Bindu like Bachak, always on the move. As part of his social life, he had a few others solicited donations on behalf of the village mandir and the annual religious Ram Leela celebrations at Esperanza. And because he was a trusted individual and people recognized this when he retired, they gave freely and never asked how the funds were spent. Ratan was never a person who spoke about his affairs to anyone. In this way, few people knew anything about his family except what they observed. When Bindu discovered that Ratan had died penniless, he sensed the family would be in need of financial assistance. He knew a lack of money would impact badly on the members, and perhaps they would have to forego meals on some days. Without consulting Sonya, he decided to seek donations from villagers. He thought they would understand Sonya's predicament and would be willing to assist. Those who were born in Esperanza knew that this was a common practice. Whenever someone died, Bindu made a collection and gave it to the bereaved family. At times, he gave the family tins of biscuits, a few ounces of cheese, packets of butter, and large packets of black coffee for the wake. When Ratan died, Auntie Mama had sent rotten potatoes once or twice, which Sonya immediately threw away, saying, "My sister really take me for a dog, yes?" Bindu heard about it and told his wife, "It's time to help." Ratan was a good man, a bad planner, but a good man. And we can't let Sonya and the family suffer. Sonya is a good lady. One Sunday morning, Bindu, with a tarry in his hand, walked the village alone, since no other person was available to accompany him. He started at Kanka's house, the first house in the village, and stopped at every house where he pleaded for support. One man said to him, "What? Collecting money to help them? Yeah, anything you could give." "Right now I want somebody to give me something," the man said. "In a bad position too." "But you're not dead yet?" "No, I live it." Bindu examined the man closely, wondering if he were drunk, but found him sober. He smiled. Brother, I not making a joke, it's help I trying to help. You want to help them or you want to help yourself? In other words, you telling me I's a thief, eh? You hear me use the word thief? Look, man. Bindu didn't wait. Thank you, brother. Have a good day. Bindu was walking away when Timothy, riding a bicycle and wearing a broad hat and sunglasses, nearly crashed into him. Bindu did not have time to jump out of the way, but Timothy sensed the danger and stayed clear. Watch yourself, you old bitch. Immediately, Timothy regretted it, saying, oh God, it's Mr. Bindu. I hope he didn't make me out. Bindu did not. By the time he recognized what was happening, Timothy had ridden far away from him. I wonder who that is. Not from here. At the end of the day, he had collected $35 made up of mostly coins. Some months later, Dolly told her mother that Bindu added $5 of his own money to give them a total of $40. Mrs. Rattan, he said to Sonya when he sat close to her on the bench under the house, I bring something for you, something good. There was a faint smile on his lips. Sonya showed some interest in what he said, but she was also preoccupied with thoughts of her children, their future and bills to pay, and how they would survive. When he looked at her, she appeared far removed, lost in thoughts. Auntie Mama, who was visiting Sonya at the time, her long dress reaching as far as her calves, sat on another bench, but said nothing. Auntie Mama was thinking of her own future too, for Fulu was making life very difficult for her. Fulu wished to drive her out of the house. Auntie Mama recognized Fulu's trend of thought, but communicated this to no one. Sonya was looking at Bindu, seeing him as a reminder of Rattan, short, dark, stocky, always wearing a worn hat, a thick black mustache above his lips. He said again, I bring this for you, a little something. What? What is that? She looked at him curiously. It's a little money I collect from the village for you. Sonya looked at the brown envelope, sensing what was in it, and wondered what to do. It was the first time someone was offering her money. She was in doubt, but she finally extended her right tattooed hand. She smiled, a rare expression from her these days. Thank you. Thank you. She held the envelope in her hands. Count it now. No, it's okay, it's all right. She looked towards the kitchen. Where that girl? She was looking for Dolly. I ain't not seen she. I wonder where Bilar gone. When Sonya was in a light-hearted mood, she always called Dolly Bilar. Auntie Mama began looking for Dolly. She called several times, and when she did not respond, she said, I go hold it till I see she. She must be in the back bathing the children. And you know how they afraid cold water, she'll bathe the baby last. On his way home, Bindu was a bit surprised at some of the things people told him. I tell you, he said to himself, doing good work is a hell of a work, yes? People getting the feeling that everybody is a crook. And look at me, just look at me. All I trying is to help out people, and people can't understand that. I don't want anything for myself. We in the village and we live like family. Like family, man. If one person down, we should try to help. And then Rattan and me was good friends. So why for I shouldn't help? I shouldn't help out. Once my heart clean, I okay. God is my witness, not people. Dolly joined Auntie Mama and Sonya a few minutes after Mr. Bindu left. Auntie Mama said, take this and make sure you write it in the book. You hear? It's not to spend buying lipstick and rouge and nail polish. Always not big shot. Yes, Auntie, I'll write it now. Dolly felt a little angry from the warning, but smiled and walked away. A short distance from his house, Bindu saw the roaming horse, feeding on his hibiscus fence. But look at this horse. It's free, it's nice, and everybody like it. Eat, horsey, eat. Nobody will harm you in Esperanza. You's a free soul. A little boy approached. Mister, this is your horse? Is everybody's horse? It does sleep anywhere it wants. I could touch it? Yes. Come. Bindu patted the tail, the tall, robust-looking animal, but the boy did not. The horse continued to eat the leaves of the hibiscus plant. What happened? You afraid it? I afraid it bite me. Stand up by me. The boy stood next to him. Quickly, the boy, a little fear in him, rubbed his right hand against the horse's belly. He did it slowly, timidly, and then he pulled it away and smiled. Touch it again, the boy did. See, I do it. Nice horse, I like it. He turned to Bindu. I could touch it again? Yeah, go ahead, it wouldn't bite you. And the boy did. Nice, nice horse, he said, and he made his way home. But Chania heard of his a few days later when she visited her daughter. I telling you, Sonya, not to take money from people. Confused, Sonya looked at her mother. What, ma? Today they give you tomorrow and they spit it back in your face. Eh? You're not listening, girl. Not listening at all. Ma, but Mr. Bindu's not that kind of person. I know what I'm saying. Auntie Mama, who was visiting again, said, it's only for now, ma, until things get better. And she can see she way. It's only for now. You're not listening too. But Chania said, you all forget how man go behaving, eh? Rata now dead. He come to help his sister, but what he want? He want to bury Rata and Winslow tongue. Ever see more stubbornness than that? Ever see more? And when Sonia said no, he said, go to hell. He walk out and never come back. Hear what I saying, good. Man go gone and not coming back. But Chania paused. Okay, ma, okay. Anybody could tell me why he do that for? She shook her head sideways. Because he want to take over. He want to boss Sonia around. What he should do is ask she if he could do so and so, not boss she around. Me telling you what you take already, you take, but don't take no more. Learn to be strong for yourself. She looked at her daughter, Sonya. Sonya, if you want money, I will pawn my thick gold bracelets by Ramasa pawn shop for you. I will pawn it just for you, because I don't want you to take money from people. You hear me, Sonya? You hear what I'm telling you? You listening good? Yes, ma, I hear. Don't only hear with your mouth, hear with your head too. Okay, ma. Sonia was most certainly displeased. The okay was short and sharp, almost a shout. Nevertheless, she continued in a milder tone. Okay, ma, I know what you mean. Don't take charity. Work for what you want. Your father never begged, so you mustn't beg too, Emma. But Chania learned to be tough, especially the way her husband ill-treated her at times. At first, she had buckled under his weight, but as time went by, she stood up to him. When Sonia recalled her words, but Chania smiled, showing she was very pleased. She did add, though, me mean just that. She shook her head sideways. If you want something, you have to work hard for it. It doesn't come easy. Never mind Ramdu father say all you go catch all your tail. All you know Ramdu is the fella living by the shop. Show Ramdu all you could work hard to get everything all you want. All you wouldn't catch all your tail. And if you have to, you have to. But God don't give you more than you could bear. Come on. Okay, ma, I understand. Sonia thought of returning the money, but Bindu was so genuine that she could not refuse, and then too, she really needed it. To return it would be to deny herself $40, and she just couldn't afford to reject that amount of money. So she accepted it. For my children's sake, I will take it, not for me. For the children, she had said to herself, not for me, for the children's sake. Minutes later, she safely hid the money under her mattress on the wooden floor. Sonia felt very comforted that on a rainy day there was something she could depend on. It was not what she wanted, but it was what she must accept. She had no choice. She told Dolly, I didn't ask your father to drop dead, but he did. She wiped a few teardrops from her face. And now I must do something so all of we could live. People say when you're afraid to do something, you doesn't get through. You can lose out. Not me, I going to fight. I going to make sure all you get what all your father did want for all of you. I not going to forget that. My father was a fisherman, and he never afraid the sea where it had no branch. I on land, so I mustn't afraid. One time he did nearly drown when his boat capsized by a big wave, but he and his partner swim to shore while the boat sink. They don't know which part of the sea the boat sink, and they never find it. But my father was a brave man, till he dropped dead. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie Ann Douglas Essence, for chapter 7. I want to bring on another person to bring greetings to Vishnu on the writing of this book, this novel. Motilal Boodoosingh. Vishnu is involved in poetry and prose, and Motilal, I'm going to call on Motilal to bring greetings for that group, on behalf of that group, which was founded by Grisha Mahabir. We also have a member from that group who hails from Belmont, Cynthia Birch, and she came with a fellow Belmontian, Ralph Lee. And incidentally, I am also from Belmont. From the offshore field in the energy industry, Motilal, upon retirement, switched to the fields of literacy and literature. He holds from UE a BA in literature and communications, as well as a certificate in the teaching of reading. He also has an adult literacy tutor's certificate. Motilal is the author of the Kahani series, Kal Kahani, Naya Kahani, Chatak Kahani, and his latest, Aji and or Nani Kahanis, Aji or Nani Kahanis. As prolific as his writing is his frenetic involvement in literacy and literary sessions, such as the Alta project of Readings Under the Trees and the fortnightly Zoom sessions of Poetry and Prose, of which he is a long-standing member. Published in a number of magazines, he's also a regular contributor to the online literary magazine of his good friend Tony Deal, My Trinidad, Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow. I call on Motilal Boodoosingh to bring greetings.
Thank you, Krishna. That introduction was pretty long, so I'll try to be a little shorter. Mr. Chairman Krishna, Dr. Bo, Vishnu, specially invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Vishnu Gosine joined Poetry and Prose in 2017 and immediately made his presence felt. A small man with a big intellect and an amazing body of work in local literature, with 4 novels and short stories and poems in many literary magazines. He, together with my good friend Al Ramsawat, became the seniors who mentored the many younger members of Poetry and Prose. He used to make that trip from Cuba to Debe Library, where they all loved him. He's the main man with our Author of the Month program, serving as interviewer and researcher. When we published our anthology, Musings, in a tea shop last year, Vishnu gave invaluable service on the reading committee. His incisive yet gentle observations have helped many members, including me, to enhance our poems and our short stories. He has brought many new members to our group and helped increase our reach to the Americas and Europe. We have people on our Zoom from all over the world. Vishnu's love for local literature is demonstrated by his frequent readings of extracts from some long-forgotten authors. Recently, he has been reading extracts from Harold Soniledu, Michael Anthony, Ken Parmasad, and others. I envy his collection of local Trini literature. Vishnu is our go-to person when we are featuring local authors and for our special Indian Heritage Month and our Diwali programs. His wealth of knowledge and research always bring excellence to our projects. He's an amazing storyteller in his own right. Recently, he had us in suspense and anticipation as he read his 3-part story, Sapping the Wealthy, with 1 episode per week. He was just teasing us, His latest book, Sonya, is the subject of today's program. Well, I have just gotten my copy and I can't wait to start reading. I am sure it is another masterpiece. As we celebrate his latest achievement, we must not lose sight of his awesome contribution to local literature, as we have seen on the table there. Poetry and Prose would like to offer our congratulations to this remarkable captain of local literature, who, in his own right, is a master recorder of our culture. So thank you, Vish, for your masterful contribution to literature and to poetry and prose. Thank you.
Thank you, Moti. And now we come to a crucial part of today's launch, the featured speaker, not the guest of honor, but the featured speaker, Dr. Bhoendradatt Tewarie, who will give a review and formally launch the book, the novel Sonya. Dr. Tewarie received his PhD in comparative literature from the Pennsylvania State University. He is a man who has worn several hats, and from the research I did, I can see he boasts of a very impressive CV. Really impressed by it, Dr. Tewarie. Before being appointed PVC and principal of UE St. Augustine, he was a lecturer at UE and later served as the executive director of the UE Institute of Business. He served as chairman of NEHRST, where he facilitated the creation of COSTAT. I had no idea of that. That was really revealing to me. And facilitated the foundation work for the establishment of the National Accreditation Agency. He also developed the rationale for the establishment of the National Training Agency. He was the founding director of the Institute of Critical Thinking. As a politician who had his grounding in the Lloyd Best Tapia movement, he was elected as the MP for Caroni East in the Naro government. Later, he was appointed a senator and made a minister in the PP government. In 2015, he was elected the MP for Caroni Central, an occasional columnist in our daily newspapers, and at one time host of the program Brighter Morning with Bo, aired on MCTV and on U97.5 FM multicultural radio. Dr. Tewarie has published many articles and book chapters on economic, educational, and development issues. He has, to his credit, 3 books, 2 of which he co-authored: Governance in the 21st Century University, Trade, Investment, and Development in the Caribbean. V.S. Naipaul revisited ethnicity, marginality, and the triumph of individual will is solely his. I give you my past undergraduate and postgraduate lecturer to review and formally launch the novel, Dr. Bhoendradatt Tewarie.
Thank you very much, Krishna, for that more than generous introduction. I must say that I was quite moved by the readings from Natasha Greer and Leslie Ann Beckles because of their chosen chapters, they give you a sense of the substance, but also the rhythm and spirit of the writer and the book. And I want to say that for the people gathered here and listening, it must have made a big difference to hear the oral rendition of some of the chapters. Let me start by saying good evening to each and every one of you. It is an honor and a pleasure to be with people who have come here to celebrate a new book, a new novel, and to celebrate a writer who has given us short stories and earlier novels before, and who reads to us sometimes via Facebook from his own work and from the work of others. I want to thank V. Ramsamoj Gosine, Vishnu Ramsamoj Gosine, for inviting me to say a few words at the launch of Sonya, his latest novel. I feel privileged that Vishnu asked me. I am happy to be here, and I would like you to join me now in offering sincere congratulations to writer Vishnu Gosine on the publication of Sonya. I have a feeling that this novel is extra special to the author, so I ask you to join me in giving him a warm round of applause. First of all, the author presents the village of Esperanza as it was perhaps in the late 50s, 60s, early 60s, and 1970s, a rural village in the shadow of Carney Limited, with its vast cane fields with poor people, a few of them Indians who came here as indentured servants, others first generations Trini Indians, their children second generation Trinis, and their grandchildren third generation. What does life in Trinidad and Tobago have to offer them? How are they going to navigate the present and build a future in Esperanza when it is a struggle every day to put food on the table? How does a poor, uneducated people without skills or jobs live? How do they eke out an existence? How do they make a living to make a life? By the manner in which he presents his story, Vishnu Gosine allows us as readers to witness and experience the life of Esperanza villagers in an earlier time, post-indenture, plantation economy, rural underdevelopment, marginalized village, relatively isolated community, but whose isolation and marginalization perhaps protect them from the dissonant life and disruptive ways of the outside world of temptation. And even with the conflicts, the narrow-mindedness and commerce of village life, from time to time, Esperanza affords a certain innocence to the community and its children. In a community like this, one can feel trapped between poverty, boredom, the repetitious rituals of living, the struggle with hunger, the challenges of creating cash flow, and searching for ways of escape to a better, more desirable life. Yet one finds that in spite of debilitating constraints, there is ambition, there is drive, and there is a quest for a better life among the young, as well as in the aspiration of parents for their children. In this time and place of innocence and hardship, there are moments of natural beauty and opportunities for abundance. And in the midst of simple living, there can be slivers of high thinking. Taking, for instance, this description of nature in motion on an early morning in Esperanza. And I quote from the book now on page 2. This morning, like most crop time mornings, was bright, but there was a gentle coolness in the breeze in Esperanza, a village hidden in the middle of lively cane-arrowed sugarcane fields. A few immortal trees towered above the cane fields on the banks of the winding river that ran on the eastern side of the smaller old-fashioned sugar factory. Sonya had moved to the top of the wooden stairs at the back of the house. From there she was enjoying the sight of many happy birds, mostly blackbirds and kiskadis that fed on crushed pieces of yesterday's sada roti. They were jumping, hopping, and flying. While pecking at the bits of roti, the birds were whistling loudly, agut, agut, atiti, their tails fanned as they trumpeted. Or again at sunset in the village, I quote, "The sun made its way across the calm Gulf of Paria and through its thousands of colors for all to see. One half of the village was cast in shadows, while the other half was enjoying the last bit of sunlight. The treetops had changed their green temporarily and were now displaying a multiplicity of bright colors. It was difficult to say where one color ended and another began." Taking with me also the joy of enterprise and the sense of abundance, as well as the simple joys of living in that rural community. I quote from the book again, the novel. "There were about 30 locally made fishing boats, and all were manned by fishermen from the village. Sonya had proudly told her children that Singh, her father, never bought a boat from anyone, but built his own boat every 5 years or so. Jaiko was an excellent fisherman, and Bachia cooked his fish for him without fail. He brought home a different fish every day. If he brought carrot one day, the next day he was sure to bring crocro, mullet, bochet, salmon, or kingfish. He simply loved his fish cooked in curry with a lot of Congo pepper. So amidst the fierce poverty, life could be abundant, and the people were enterprising. They found ways to eat and to live and to make a living, and they found ways to give purpose and meaning to their lives. Consider these other manifestations of higher thinking and hope for a better quality of life. For instance, Ratan, Sonya's husband, who dies early in the book and leaves Sonya and their children behind. He says to Sonya on the day that they move into their new house, I quote, "Every young man must have a dream to build and live in his own house. Even though you get your father own, you must always do better." This is Ratan speaking. Ratan, looking at the hard work that Sonya had to put out to cook meals every day, built her a crude stove, you heard the story here, from pieces of scrap iron, and the stove actually worked. And he took risks to stand up for workers, to see to it that justice for workers was done. And more than that, he was a good husband and father, an exemplary citizen. And Ratan's ambition never waned. This is a quote from the book. "The world changing, he said to his son Chris. My father and mother come to cut cane. I is a mechanic. But I want you to hold a pen and write big words from the big dictionary that come from England. England people could talk, Chris. When you hear Wolf and Tom in the factory, you know they come from England. Their voice sweet like poem. Yes, the colonial power and influence are there for sure, but so is the pull of education, of upward mobility, and the power of driving ambition. The drive to escape the cane field is also strong. A quotation from the book. Chris said, "Yes, Pa, I want to go to high school. I want to be a teacher, anything, but not to cut cane." So the cane field and the sugar factory are both income providers as well as institutions of entrapment. Once inside, there are few opportunities for a better life. An option outside the sugar cane field would offer better promise. Another high-minded and decent person in the book is Sonya's brother-in-law, Ban. He gives his sister money never to repay. to look after her family after her husband dies. At one point, Barnes says to himself, and I quote again from the novel, "It was either he helped or he didn't. There was not going to be any halfway. He was going to shoulder the responsibility." He saw many families without a man in the house crumble, mainly because the children openly disobeyed the mother and the grandparents who have little help. He did not want this to happen to his nieces and nephews. Helpful too was Mr. Henry, the head teacher, an outsider who valued education and who wanted to see the children benefit from it to escape a life of bondage and of limitations. So in the midst of entrapment, there are means of escape, and there are a few good people willing to help or to show the way or to build bridges. Ratan and Sonya are people who live above pettiness, who are given to high-mindedness, and who carry within them ambition and drive, and who have concern for family and community. When Ratan dies, Sonya is respectful of his memory and his values, and is just as protective of and ambitious for her children as he, Ratan, was. She refuses to send off her children to rich relatives, choosing instead to keep her family together. She protects her girl children from predators, and she struggles to support educational opportunity, to give some measure of freedom to her boys in a time of restricted opportunities for all. Sonya does not do it on her own. Good people help her, but she also struggles on her own, and she has self-confidence, boldness, an enterprising spirit, a quick mind, and is circumspect when she has to be. With these blessings and assets, she thrives, keeps her family together, and helps everyone she cares for to make progress. There is pettiness and small-mindedness as well in the village that are often typical of closed communities. Jealousy, quarrels, and conflicts, for instance. And there is habitual exploitation of workers and small-time corruption involving bribes of foul cocks, for instance, and even downright evil as the killing of a horse which gave joy to everyone in the community. And there is poverty, hardship, and rum drinking, which we need not dwell upon. We need not dwell on these because at its heart, Sonya's story is about individual and collective triumph over multiple conditions of adversity in a still colonially structured and minded society, living under the shadow of plantation sugar economy, eking out existence under conditions of rural underdevelopment, destitution and isolation, and the pull and push not just to escape, but to triumph as individuals and to evolve as human beings. The story of this novel is Sonya's story. Her husband dies and leaves her alone with 8 children who are yet to get schooling or skills to make a life. She has a home which her husband thankfully left for the family, but she has no savings, find out she has a debt for groceries, has no job, no source of income, little help, and she does not know how she will keep her family together, get her life together, and create the conditions to realize some of her dreams. She plants a few things in the yard, she rears a few common fowls. She begins to buy and sell produce. Over time, that fails. She tries to get a job for one of her sons in the sugar factory. And eventually, she is bold enough to approach Shule to get a job for herself as another son gets a scholarship that makes further education possible. In the end, it is a major triumph for her, a woman who says clearly in the novel, and she does say this, that what she wants is financial independence. because that is the only thing that will allow her to breathe and to live and to savor the precious taste of freedom. There are moments of depressing deprivation as villagers struggle to make a living, collecting bottles, making coconut oil, taking credit in the shop for goods without knowing how they are going to pay. Sonya herself cries her heart out when she realizes that her son Chris might never have the opportunity for an education. And Jacob and his wife commit suicide because they are unable to face the humiliation and aggression of those to whom they are indebted. But life victories are determined by confidence, clarity, resolve, and persistence. And in all the ups and downs, trials and tribulations, and inner turmoils, Sonya is able to summon confidence, see clearly, harness resolve, and persist to achieve her objectives, to create the life opportunities that she dreams of for herself and for her family. The round table that she salvages and anchors in the house for the children to do homework and for them to study with attendant, stiff discipline and strong rules represents an act of resolve to create the crude infrastructure necessary to give the children stepping stones to opportunity. And it works. The children study, they do their homework, they do well, they seize opportunities, and they progress. The last few paragraphs of the book are happy with triumph. She, Sonya, I quote from the book, hugged Chris and Dads and Dolly and said, "You see, Ratan, you see, your children doing well. You would be really happy for them. Now we have to make sure we still do the good things we always do." Sonya wiped the streaming tears off her cheeks. She had shed many tears hidden from her children, but today there was no withholding the flow. There was an immeasurable joy in her heart, and she exclaimed, "You see, Ratan, you see?" Joy overwhelms. And in the end, too, the community remains intact. The killing of the horse could have turned into a commotion and village commerce and could have even brought vendetta and violence. But basic community institutions and traditions prevented that. The panchayat as an institution was made to function, and the Pandit offered constructive leadership and guidance, and in the end, a crisis that could have divided brought the community together around a positive solution. In the end, the novelist Vishnu Gosine takes the story of a family struggling to make a living in hard times, takes it to the tragedy of the loss of a husband and father, to the struggles of a woman with 8 children, battling the forces around her, with continuing fidelity to her husband's values and dreams, total devotion to her family welfare, floundering without skills, money, or income, and a harsh world, perpetually seeking, however, to overcome. But the family triumphs. Sonya triumphs. Ratan, though gone, triumphs. It is a story of character, resolve, and persistence. A story of hope that uplifts. I have known Vishnu Gosine for a long time. I taught him at the University of the West Indies in the 1970s. He was always a teacher and a writer, while a husband, father, and family man. And he always loved and cherished literature. We became friends when Kamla and I were moving to our home in Home Farms in Cunupia in the 1980s. He brought me some trees to plant in our front yard. 3 of them are still alive and thriving. Over the years, he has written 3 books and many short stories. This is his 4th. Keep writing, Vishnu. Say the things you want to say. Tell the stories you wish to tell. Let your heart, your spirit, your imagination speak. The author tells us that he wrote Sonya from January 2021 to January 2023. So he made really good use of the COVID years. What dedication and what an achievement. Congratulations again. Although this might be a very personal story to the author, rooted in his own experience and embedded in his memory, the author writes in a fairly detached way, with an unintrusive hand. Emotions are subdued and judgments are avoided. And there is great empathy for some of the characters. The characters who are not good people are left on the periphery of the narrative. Ultimately, this is a story of a woman's triumph and a family's achievement. A heartwarming story of which the author should be proud and which readers should take time to enjoy. It is a period piece, it is true, but the human ambitions and aspirations are recognizable anywhere, anytime, in any striving community. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Tewarie. We come now to what we could call a cultural item. Mohip Poonwasie was firstly an actor before he became a singer and composer. He is a famed exponent of Pichakari, the singing competition held by the Hindu Prachar Kendra as part of their celebrations of Phagwa, an initiative of Raviji. Mohip has won many competitions for his singing, both at the national and regional levels. He's also a judge in Tasarama and the Prime Minister's Best Village competition. Added to that, I saw him with his camera. He's a photographer, and I wondered who this Mohip Poonwasie was. Where Mohip? I see the other people reach, but where Mohip? They say, go across by the counter. So he's also caterer. Mohip, I was told, wrote a song based on the novel, and I now call upon him to delight and entertain us with his lyrical creation and composition. Mohip?
Namaste. Pleasant good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. I am usually tight on time with catering and almost always late. But today I left home actually a whole hour before. But coming down near Esperanza Junction, I had some traffic. So I was wondering what's going on, and I saw this young fella, this group of fellas stand up watching this horse for a long while. Then further up the road, I saw some chickens causing some traffic jam. And there was this old lady sit down with this big basin of stale roti, breaking and throwing for the chickens. And if I get that joke, well, I need to read the first 2 pages of the book. I want to extend greetings on behalf of Sri Raviji, who has always been a long-standing friend to Mr. Vishnu Gosine. And if he was not unwell, he would have surely been here today. When I look into the audience, I see a special lady who holds a wonderful, deep relation to me, and she's looking away. She's wondering who I'm talking about, Miss Rosemary Dipnarine. Way back, I think it was 1993 or 1994, through the introduction of Mr. Vishnu Gosine as well as Miss Rosemary Dipnarine, I think somewhere in this almost same geographical location, I would have come to Tewarie Nagar when they first came over in this location. I may have the year off, and it had a lot of mud. And there, somewhere in, I think the same spot was the then folk theater. And in occasions like that is where I launched my career in culture through Mr. Vishnu Gosine. I wrote this short piece because I thought when he asked for an entertainment piece, I said I can't just come and sing any song. So while I was browsing the book, I realized that I know some of these stories because he is a father figure to me, and many in our conversations, I would have heard some of these stories. This book is not just indentia history. It is not just a family story. It's part of Trinidad history, and it is his story. Suno to this kisa about ma Sonya. Suno to this kisa about ma Sonya. Many such a story, we all share this memory of we Jahaji history. Suno to this kisa about ma Sonya. Born in a fishing village, a life with little privilege, education was the key, but lost the opportunity. A mother always finds a way so children can succeed today. Her labor helped to shape and mold, and so ma Sonya story unfold. Suno to this kisa about ma Sonya. Many such a story, we all share this memory of we Jahaji history. A story of prosperity or struggles through poverty. Looking through ma Sonya's eyes, was she unlettered or simply wise? Life in the plantation bore much tribulation. Every trying situation strengthened family relation. Ma Sonya's story similar to you and me, a part of indentia history, reflecting the struggles of Jahaji. Suno to this kisa about ma Sonya. Thank you.
Suno to this kisa, you listened to that story. Thank you so much, Mohip. And now, the man of the moment, the writer himself, V. Ramsamuj Gosine. He was born in rural Trinidad in 1946. His grandparents were both indentured immigrants from India, working in the sugarcane fields. His father wanted to become a school teacher but refused to convert to Presbyterianism, instead becoming a foreman at BC Sugar Factory, where he became very active in the sugar union. His mother, the fictional Sonya, was a sugarcane worker. After he left school, Vishnu Gosine worked as a mail boy, clerk, and then as a teacher. He was one of the first graduates of the Corinth Teachers College. He worked at Orange Valley and then at Madras Government Primary School. Later, he graduated from UE and he worked at Cuba West Secondary. Now, I intentionally mention these details as the astute reader of the novel would readily see the connections with one of the characters in Sonya. Vishnu began writing many years ago and is as active in the encouragement of others as in pursuing his own work. I can personally attest to that. Vishnu always saying, Krishna, do this, Krishna, go here, Krishna, go there. For a long time, he was an active member of the Writers' Union of Trinidad and Tobago, a regular book reviewer in the Trinidad Press, and coordinator of the literary program featured at the Folk Theatre of the annual Diwali Nagar celebrations. Vishnu's stories have been published in the Trinidad and Tobago Review, BIM, The New Voices, Toronto South Asian Review, The Caribbean Writer, and in a number of anthologies. The latest in Poetry and Prose is Musings in a Tea Shop. The Man Who Saw God is a collection of some of his short stories, 10 in all. His first novel, The Coming of Lights, was published by People Tree Press in 1992. It was promoted as that publication's first novel for younger readers. After that came The 12 O'Clock Man, and now there is Sonya. He has to his credit a number of grammar books also. Presently, he's a stalwart of the Poetry and Prose Open Mic Literary Group, and weekly, as Moti mentioned, Vishnu posts readings on the social platform of Facebook. I want to welcome V. Ramsamuj Gosine to the podium with a lovely, lusty round of applause.
Hi, good evening. Welcome to you all. Thank you all for coming. And when I listened to him, I was wondering if he was talking about me or if he was talking about somebody else. But say what? Before I do a little reading here, I'm not going to take very long, 2 pages. I just want to recognize my brother-in-law, Pandit Deoroop Maharaj, sits quietly in the corner next to my sister, and my niece across there. Of course, you all know Arti. When I was at high school, and actually in Form 1, he will tell me I have to read 10 pages of Charles Dickens every day. 10 pages of Charles Dickens, whether it's Great Expectations or Till Up to Seasons, whatever it is. That's my starting in literature. And his best book was always Silas Marner by George Eliot. And I had to read Silas Marner too. In fact, I have his copy that he used in high school in Arima, Silas Marner. So that's my brother-in-law there. They actually the person who got me on to literature and to reading and to things like that many, many donkey years ago. I don't think Lynn and they know that yet, but that part of the story, my sister would have known that story too. I want to remember today as I in a sense, celebrate this book, to remember Michael Anthony, my good friend who died so many years ago. Well, sorry, last year, Michael died. And Michael and I have had a long, long relationship since 1973. And I'm sure Michael would have been here, as well as Harry and Ryan, who and I had a long and extensive relationship too. In fact, when I met Harry, Harry had just done Days Gone By, and since then Harry wrote other books there. Actually, Harry's latest book is The Cosmic Child. It's being posthumously published by his family only yesterday. So I do have a copy of it. And I want to remember to you know who I'm talking about. The lady of the house who should have been here, but you know, it is few not here. So we all fight this all the time. All right, so I'm going to read just well, I actually forgot it. Actually, what I was going to read is what Dr. Tewarie read. And then I was going to read another piece, and he quoted the other piece too. So it put me in a spot where I had to find something to read. And that's it. I was going to read page 1 and 2. And I said, okay. Then he came to the back and he read about the birds. And I said, oh, jeez, you read that too? Okay. So what do I read? So since he was very serious, in fact, he took all these serious pieces on the book, and as though the book had no light-hearted piece, and I said, and even Natasha and Leslie and read the same thing. I said, geez, boy. People think it looked like me. As Arti will say, Dad, why don't you smile sometime? Arti has Helen taken out pictures. Anyway, the piece I'm going to read is 1 page long, and it's about the table that Dr. Tewarie talked about a little bit there. One night, while at the table, Thakur said, "A ant's biting in my pants. I go to dust it out." "Where it biting you?" Sonya said. "In my pants." "Good. That's a good place to bite." Dad giggled, but one hard look from his mother and returned to his reading book. "Take off your pants, let everybody see the kind of ants that doesn't bite you. But let them all see the new kind of ants in Esperanza." Thakur looked around, saw anxious faces, anxious eyes resting on him, and played with his belt buckle. Sonya kept her eyes on him. "Drop your pants, let all of us see the kind of ants biting you." Thakur laughed. "Oh, it was really a mosquito. Look at it going, see, it going, see?" "Next time, don't let it go. We'll help you find it." He smiled, sat down and continued his work. He said to Dad, "I is a big boy now. She can't make me drop my pants." Dad said, "Tell she that now? You think I'm stupid or what? When I get in trouble, you will laugh at me." On another occasion, Thakur said, around the same table, "I feeling hungry. I ain't eating enough. And I think my belly grumbling. It must be collecting wind." And Sonya looked at Thakur and told herself, maybe he did not eat enough to satisfy his hunger. She had cooked as she did every day, but the beggar had passed and said he was hungry. So she gave him half of one roti and some curried vegetables to eat. And Sonya said, "It have a half from this evening, but wait right here. I'm going to make a fresh one for you to eat." And he said, "Thanks, Ma. I could come with you?" "To do what?" "I could show you water while you're kneading the flour." Sonya thought of his support, smiled and said, "Don't worry, I could do that. I'll make a roti to be sad for you alone." She looked at him, in his eyes to see his action. Thakur remained quiet, but Dad said, "Real roti for you, boy. You're lucky, yes? Wish it was me, I would have mashed it up." And Sonya said, "You shut up, Mr. Dad. Stop running him out." Sorry, the words just fly out. And Thakur, who asked for the roti because he wanted to idle sometimes, said, "It's all right, Ma. I go eat in the morning." "Well, you could eat half now and I go feed you before the next one in the morning." "Nah, don't worry, Ma. I ain't feeling hungry again. I go eat in the morning." All right, that's my contribution to it. That's the comic part. There's some pretty small comic parts in the book itself, to find it, but part it. All right, the other person who is coming. Where is she? It's oh. Yeah, I was going to say something, but I didn't want her to hear, but she'll hear anyway. The other person who is coming to the microphone is coming to say and call other people's names and whatnot, but she will not call her own name, well, for obvious reasons. I want to say to you that it's Arti actually who pulled this whole program together, and for that I want to give her a little round of applause.
Thank you, Vishnu. V. Ramsamoj Gosine, for your book, the novel Sonya. Vishnu, I thought you was going to... Vish, I thought you were going to say my introduction here to Arti. I started panic. Anyhow, after this introduction, I will take my seat and Arti will invite you all to partake, I suppose, right? Arti Gosine is the daughter of our guest of honor, the writer. I would think he's Bilar, though he might be quick to deny or disown it, as his paternal love has to be doled out equally with Ved, his son. Arti started writing at the tender age of 8. Her short stories were first published in the Junior Express, a local publication for children. She is the holder of a BSc in Chemistry and Management and a Master's in Business Administration. She is the Managing Director of JV Publishing House. Do you all say JAV? I don't know if all say JAV. Her first novel is The Magic Cave. Its sequels, More Adventures in the Magic Cave and The Jaden Ring, are helping to spread her name as a successful writer of children's books. This is the part that, like Vishnu was watching my notes. It is no secret she is the mastermind behind the publication, printing, launch, and marketing of this novel, Sonya, literally carrying her father's latest work on her shoulder. So I want to thank you all for the privilege of functioning as your master of ceremonies. And I want to call now on Arti Gosine to give the vote of thanks and to render the closing remarks. Thank you all.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Sorry about that little emotional run out the door kind of thing. You know, both Dad and I are still trying to get accustomed to not having the Queen with us. Firstly, I'd like to thank all of you for accepting our invitation to come here tonight. Surprisingly, this is the first time we've actually done an official launch for one of Dad's books. His body of work is so huge, and sometimes that's all he talks about on the phone. 2 or 3 calls for the day, and we're talking books. So I wanted to do something really nice for him and to do a proper launch for Sonya. As you all may have gathered, Sonya is my grandmother, was. Ratan, my grandfather. I don't know Ratan, but I know Sonya. And my very vivid memory of her is wearing a dress, cotton dress, a cotton orni, and her tall boots, she's going to the sugarcane fields to work, to support the family. Although the children had grown and moved away and all that, she continued working for a while. Maybe it was her escape out of the house. So she had on her tall boots and her cutlass, and that's my very, very vivid picture of my grandmother. To all of you, I mean, many of you are our family by blood, but all of you are our family, because family is not just blood. And I'm so glad to see so many of you here today. My neighbors who are always there for me. My husband, of course, Mohip. Simone, who I've worked with for 10, 12 years on our magazine. I'd like to thank Uncle Bo. I'm not used to calling him Dr. Tewarie, but thank you very much. And to Uncle Chris, thanks for accepting our invitation to do the emceeing tonight. Thank you to Natasha and Leslie Ann, who I've only met recently, but I think we're going to bond. And of course to Mohip. You all heard a little bit of the story about Mohip, but Mohip has always been in my life as far as I could remember. He was one of Daddy's students at Couva Junior Sec, and Daddy just took him under his wing. So now Mohip is my adopted brother, or brother. Daddy always, at the top of his head is always family. So when I got married, Jivan wasn't the son-in-law. He was the son. And it's the same with my mom. I always said, Mommy liked Jivan more than she liked me, you know. Anything he wanted, he got, right? So, I'm kind of going off there. Thanks to my cousin Lynn, who's been my rock since Mommy passed. Yeah. So, and I'm so glad she could be here with us tonight. So I have two small tokens that I'd like to present to Uncle Bo and Uncle Chris. I also have some lovely flowers for Natasha and Leslie Ann. I don't know how again to say thank you to all of you. I know I've missed quite a lot of people, but all of you have been part of my life. So thank you, everybody, Darren, Auntie Chan, my uncle, hidden in the back there. This has been a big deal for me to organize for Daddy. I mean, it's my hope that we have more books. That we have more books and I'll be able to organize more book launches. As I end, I'd like to invite everybody to mill around. We have some refreshments across there made by Mohip. And if you wish to purchase a book, we're over here. And just commune and be a family of writers and readers. Dad, I'm sure, wouldn't mind autographing a few books, if you so want him to autograph. Huh? Yeah, they're going to eat. Daddy wants to eat. Not that he eats much, okay? He eats about this much. And somebody was talking about rice and fish. Daddy could eat rice and fish 5 times a week. Dad, what are you cooking today? Rice and curry fish. Crow, curry, anything that he gets, rice and curry fish. So if you're going to drop off food for Dad, no rice and curry fish, okay? So I'd like you all to have a good evening. Thank you very much for coming and get home safely. Thanks.